Hello, welcome back to the She Wrote This Part podcast. My name is Adriana. I am so happy you're here for another episode. I'm really excited to dive into this episode. This is a topic I don't think I've posted any content about ever, and it is such an important piece of the subconscious puzzle. So I'm really excited to dive into it. I want to start off with a question. I want you to think about a decision that you made recently, and it doesn't have to be big. It could be something that you said no to. It could be something that you said yes to when you meant to say no. It could be something that you avoided without totally knowing why you avoided it. It could be a conversation that you kept putting off, an opportunity you talked yourself out of before you even really let yourself want it. So just think about a decision recently that falls into one of those categories. Got it? Okay. So I want you to sit with this question. Why did you make that call? When you consider the decision you made, what led you to make that decision? Because if your answer sounds like, I don't know, I just didn't feel like doing it, or it wasn't the right time, or I'm just not really that type of person. I'm not the type of person that does that. I want you to stay with me. If that is what your answer sounded like, I want you to stay with me for this episode because what I'm about to say is going to be a little uncomfortable, but it's going to be true, and I want you to hear it. That decision that we're talking about, it wasn't a choice, it was a program that was running. And until you learn how to tell the difference, you will keep calling your conditioning a personality trait. You will keep building a life around rules that you didn't write in a language that you were never taught to read. And the worst part about it is that it will feel completely natural. It will feel like you. So that is what this episode is about. And the thing that nobody talks about around the topic of anxiety, and I mean nobody, not your therapist, not the wellness influencer in your saved posts, not the breathwork facilitator who helped you regulate last Tuesday, anxiety is not the problem. And I know that that's completely opposite of what you've been told. Everything about the way we talk about anxiety treats it like it's a malfunction, like your body is doing something wrong and the goal is to just get it to stop doing that thing. You know, like the goal is to like calm your body down or breathe through it or regulate, cope, manage, survive, whatever it is. And what's so important is that all of that works. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the regulation tools are useless because they're not. When your nervous system is dysregulated, you do need a way to get your body back into calm. That is real. But the thing that nobody has told you and the thing that nobody is talking about is that regulation does not read the message. That's what regulation does not do. It does not read the message. Anxiety is your subconscious's way of trying to communicate with you. Anxiety is not chaos. It is not your body betraying you. Anxiety is a signal, specific, intentional, loaded with information about the programming that it is quietly running your life. And every time you manage it without translating it, you silence the only part of you that was actually trying to tell you the truth. Just let that sit for a second. It's crazy. Anxiety is your way of communicating with you. And all of those regulation tools that are telling you to get the anxiety to stop, to go away, are cutting off that communication between your subconscious and you. And regulation tools are what get all of the hype, right? All of the breathwork tools and all of the drop an anchor into your body so you can feel calm, whatever it is. All of these tools get all of the hype, but none of them actually teach you how to read the message. So I want to show you what I mean when I say that anxiety is the signal, because this is where it gets real. Anxiety is not one thing, and that might come as a surprise to you. Anxiety is not one thing. Anxiety is 3 completely different messages wearing the same face. And that'll become clear once I get into it. I just thought it was a funny metaphor, wearing the same face. Anyway, anxiety isn't one thing, it's 3 completely different messages, and most people spend their entire lives responding to the sensation without ever knowing which conversation their subconscious was actually trying to have. So I'm going to get into the 3 different messages that your anxiety is trying to communicate. The first message is, this is unfamiliar, and unfamiliar feels threatening. This is the anxiety that shows up when you are on the edge of something new, a bigger opportunity or a different version of your life, a relationship that actually feels safe, which is somehow more terrifying than the one that didn't, which I actually talked about in the last episode. Your subconscious isn't telling you that you're wrong for wanting it. It's telling you that it has never lived there before, and to a nervous system wired for survival, different and threatening are the same word. So, what do? You pull back, you slow down, you decide you're not ready, you wait for a sign that was never going to come, because the sign you're waiting for is permission from the part of you that will never give it to you, not without new information. So that is message number 1. The second message is, I've seen this before and last time it hurt. This is the anxiety that pattern matches, where something in the present, whether it's a tone of voice, a power dynamic, a type of situation, reminds your subconscious of something that was once painful. And it tries to protect you by sounding the alarm early. It's trying to say, hey, remember this happened last time? We should pay attention. Which would be useful if the comparison was accurate, but it almost never is. Your subconscious doesn't do nuance. It doesn't check whether the person in your current reality is actually like the person it's comparing it to from 25 years ago, or whether this situation has the same variables as the last one. It just goes, yep, similar enough. That's dangerous. So then you brace, you armor up, you keep people at a distance, and you can't really fully explain why. You sabotage the things that feel too good because some part of you is already waiting for the other shoe to drop. So that's the second message. The third message is the deepest one. You're breaking a rule that I made to keep you safe, which is conditioning-based anxiety inside of my anxiety source framework. And this is the one that I really want you to hear, because the first 2 you can kind of like understand, like logically you're like, okay, that makes sense. But this conditioning based anxiety is one that I feel when I explain it to people, they're like, oh my God, I never even considered that. So this one's important. This is the anxiety that shows up not when you're in danger or there's a threat, but when you are about to be more yourself than you were taught was allowed. So when you're about to take up more space, you're about to say the true thing, you're about to set the boundary, you're about to be visible, you're about to choose yourself, all of which goes against the rules that you decided unconsciously that you should follow. So now you're trying to live against it, and something in you panics. Not because it's genuinely wrong, but because somewhere along the way, whether it's a classroom or a family dynamic or a relationship or a room where you read the temperature and adjusted yourself accordingly, you made a rule. You decided something about who you were allowed to be based on what you were experiencing. You decided what was safe to want. You decided how much was too much. And that rule got coded into your subconscious as a law. Not as like a flexible, like, maybe we should do this. No, it got coded into your subconscious as a law that you follow. And if you break the law, something bad will happen. It wasn't doing this to be malicious. It was the survival. And that is what's still running right now. In your decisions you are making today about a life that looks nothing like the one you were in when that rule was written. Because generally those rules are written when we're really young, between the ages of 0 and 8. So that's a powerful sentence. I'll say that again. You are making decisions today about a life that looks nothing like the one you were in when that rule was written, which was between the ages of 0 and 8. So you are acting out rules that you made when you couldn't even write a sentence. It's crazy. It's crazy when you think about it. You could be, this 35-year-old, but the person who is behind the wheel making the decisions is still technically that 8-year-old within you. And where I need to get honest with you about all of this is that the reason this is so hard to see is because it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like you got an 8-year-old inside of your mind making the decisions. It doesn't feel like it's this unconscious program that's running. It feels like a preference. It feels like your personality. It just feels like you. It feels like, I'm just an introvert. I don't really like, putting myself out there. When actually, you just learned that needing people made you a burden. It feels like, I'm just not ambitious like that. When actually, you learned that outshining people in your family costs you something. It feels like, I just don't do really well with conflict. When actually, you learned that someone else's anger was your responsibility to manage. It feels like, I'm just a private person. When actually, you learn that being seen made you a target. None of those are personality traits. They're adaptations. They are programs that were written in a really specific context by a version of you who was doing the absolute best that she could, and they are running unchecked and unexamined in a completely different context now. In your adult life, in your relationships, in your business, in your career, in every room you walk into, and every choice you make about how much of yourself to bring in. And the anxiety you feel when you try to do it differently, that is not a sign that you shouldn't. That is the program trying to defend itself. That is your program that was installed for safety, trying to say, don't take this away. We're here for a certain reason. You're crazy for taking this away from me. This is what's keeping you safe. So the anxiety you feel is a sign that something is trying to be protected. The program is trying to defend itself. So, what does that mean? That means that what if the anxiety was never the villain? What if underneath the sensation, underneath that panic, underneath the thing you've been trying to manage and suppress and breathe through, there was a message? A specific one, a real one, and one that if you could actually hear it would tell you exactly where the old program is running and exactly what it needs in order to update. Crazy when you think about it. That's what translation is. Not managing the response, reading the signal, asking, is this familiarity talking? Is this an old pattern match that doesn't actually apply here? Or, is this a rule that I made a long time ago that I never questioned until now? Because when you can do that, when you can hear, this is my subconscious flagging unfamiliarity, not actual threat, the anxiety that used to stop you starts to actually orient you. It actually then becomes a compass. It points directly at the places where your programming and your actual life are out of alignment. And that is not information that you can get from breath work. You cannot regulate your way to it. You cannot think positive your way to it. The only way to get it is to go into the subconscious, into the source, into the moment the rule was written, and give that part of you something new to work with. That's the work. Not fighting the anxiety, translating it. Translating it so thoroughly, so specifically, that it stops needing to scream to get your attention. It's so cool to have this perspective of anxiety, because anxiety stops being the villain and it starts just being a signal that, when you know how to translate, actually gives you the information you need to unlock your next level. It's freaking incredible. It is so cool to have this understanding, and it's not talked about. All that's talked about is regulating the anxiety, getting yourself back to calm. And look, I get it. You don't want to be sitting there with a racing heart and shortness of breath every day. So we're not saying that we're avoiding the regulation. We're saying that regulation is just the first piece. But if you have been in that situation where you thought you worked out the anxiety, you thought you figured it out, you brought yourself back to calm, and then the next day you were right back to where you were yesterday. The anxiety is a signal, and you are not able to translate it with your breath work and your meditation app and your somatic tools. If you learn to translate the anxiety, it stops needing to scream at you, and it starts pinpointing and guiding you like a compass to the things that are needed, the things that are wanting to get processed, uncovered, dissolved. So that way you can patch that up and you can be on your merry way. Because that is the coolest thing about the subconscious work, is that once you pinpoint what that anxiety is, and then you use the hypnosis to actually dissolve it, it's gone. It's gone. It's pretty freaking cool. So I want to end with this. By the way, I'm going to be doing a longer YouTube video about this that gets a little bit more into the weeds, into like the depth of how this mechanism works. So I will link that YouTube video in the show notes for you if you're really interested in like how this all kind of works and plays out in more of like an education-y kind of way. That'll be there for you. But I want to end this episode with this, that you probably have spent a really long time being really good at managing. You're probably so freaking good at keeping it together. You're so good at functioning beautifully on the outside while quietly organizing your entire life around the avoidance of a feeling you were never taught to read. And I want to make that clear, that we are not ignoring how much effort it has taken you to build up all of these tools that you're using. I love that about you. I love that you know exactly which apps to use and how to use your breathing. Those are incredible tools. And your willpower did that. Your thirst for growth did that. That's so cool. So we're not ignoring that. We actually are honoring that. And we're saying, that's incredible. Now what's the next step? Where do I go from here? I think somewhere in you, you kind of already know that you can feel the places where your life is smaller than it should be, despite all of the work that you've done on yourself. And it might not be dramatic. Maybe you're just a little bit more careful than what feels actually true for you. Maybe you're just a little bit more contained than actually feels like you. Maybe you're just a little bit too much like the life of someone who is just kind of coasting rather than someone who is actually free. And that gap between where you are and who you actually are, it's not a character flaw. It's just untranslated messages. And the anxiety you've been trying to get rid of this entire time has been trying to translate the messages for you. It's been trying to hand you a platter of like, hey, pay attention, this is something to look at. And the more you continue to ignore those messages, the more you continue to just like push it away and calm it out through your breath work and your meditation and such, instead of like listening and translating it, the more it's going to come up. Because it's trying to signal to you, hey, you want to go over there? Here's this thing that we need to process before you can get the thing that you want. And without you paying attention to that, it's going to keep rearing the alarm. So learning to translate is a really important, I would say vital, I would say necessary. I know that feels like kind of dramatic, but it is. I don't see how you can get through life without learning how to translate the messages of your anxiety. I just don't. So if that is of interest to you, that is exactly what my work is teaching you how to translate what your anxiety is trying to communicate to you. So if you had a moment of recognition, if you had a flash of like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is what I've been needing, I feel like this is a missing piece, come find me. Seriously, because that recognition is not nothing. That's your subconscious going, yes, this is relevant to us, like we need to pay attention. And that is just your beginning. So next steps, if you did want to learn how to translate that, is enter my world. I have a program called the Anxiety Shift that is exactly this. It teaches you how to decode what's coming up for you in each of the moments, and it gives you the subconscious programming, the new subconscious reprogramming that you need in order to dissolve those exact things. So the work is cool. The work will blow your mind. I say that without a shadow of a doubt. The work will blow your mind. So if you're ready for the next chapter of your growth journey, if you're like, all right, I can't handle another breath work routine, I want to dissolve this for good and I want to get my life back, come find me. I think my programs would be an incredible fit for you. I would love to invite you in. But that's all I have for you today. So I hope that this was groundbreaking for you. I hope that you learned something. Like I said, I will have a longer, more in-depth educational type of YouTube video for you to dive into if you want to learn more. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to YouTube, send me an email, send me a DM, come find me on Instagram, TikTok, and I will see you in the next episode.